Foolishness, or what we call idiocy, is not a problem exclusive to a specific group of people. No matter your age, religious beliefs, or political views, anyone can fall into the trap of idiocy. And even more importantly, anyone can choose to stop being an idiot. It's not about who you are, but how you position yourself in relation to the world and others. The word idiot comes from the Greek idios, meaning private or one's own. Historically, some have interpreted it to mean someone with no formal education or a narrow worldview. However, this definition is flawed. We know highly educated people who act foolishly, and others with very little education who demonstrate great wisdom. Therefore, education alone is not the criterion. The true essence of the idiot lies in his insistence that others accept his particular opinions as absolute truths, often immediately and without question. The problem is not in having an opinion, right or wrong, but in how this person deals with his opinions and those of others. My friend Sean suggests that idiocy can be a type of idolatry. We create an idol of our own personal vision and worship it, expecting everyone else to do the same. It's natural to have our own worldviews and want others to understand and accept them. After all, we believe in what is true. The problem arises when we ignore the opinions of others and try to impose our beliefs as if the minds of others were empty vessels. This is silly because the human mind doesn't work that way. Each of us, at every moment, interacts with the world and constructs our own particular view. Our perspectives are unique, shaped by our individual experiences and interpretations. They can be simple or complex, right, wrong, or more often than not, a mixture of both. But we all possess this particular belief structure. Stoic philosophy offers powerful tools to avoid this idiocy trap. The Stoics teach us to focus on what is within our control and to accept what is not. Epictetus, one of the great Stoic teachers, emphasized the distinction between what we can control, our opinions, judgments, impulses, and actions, and what we cannot control, the opinions of others, external events, people's reactions. Imagine that you feel strongly about a political issue. A Stoic would acknowledge that your opinion is within your control. However, another person's opinion, or the ability to immediately convince them to agree with you, is not within your control. Trying to impose your view is an attempt to control the uncontrollable, leading to frustration for you and resistance from the other person. Instead, a Stoic would present your view in a measured way, accepting that the other person has the right to their own perspective, regardless of whether you agree with it. The foolishness would be to insist, take offense, or try to coerce the other person into changing their mind. Stoics value reason as the primary tool for navigating the world. They encourage us to question our own impressions and opinions, seeking truth and objectivity. You believe that A is the only solution to a problem. An idiot would insist that A is the absolute truth and disregard any other proposal. A Stoic, however, would exercise reason. He would consider the arguments behind A, but would also be open to hearing the arguments for B or C. He would pursue the virtue of prudence, which involves considering different perspectives before forming a definitive judgment. If someone else's evidence or arguments are more solid, a Stoic would be willing to adjust his own view, recognizing that the goal is truth, not personal victory. Stoic apatheia does not mean the absence of emotion, but rather freedom from emotional disturbances caused by external events. This includes irritation and frustration when our opinions are not accepted. You share an idea at work and it is rejected. A jerk would take personal offense, argue angrily, or even hold a grudge, feeling that his private vision was disrespected. A Stoic, on the other hand, would apply apatheia. He would understand that the rejection of his idea is not a personal attack, but rather an external decision that he has no control over. He would evaluate the feedback rationally, learn from the situation, and move on without allowing the disapproval of others to affect him emotionally. He would not idolize his own idea to the point of being consumed by its rejection. In a heated discussion about a social issue, an idiot would try to dominate the conversation, label the other person as ignorant for disagreeing, and not allow room for dissenting ideas to be expressed. A Stoic would engage in dialogue with the intent to understand, not just to win. He would listen attentively, ask questions to clarify the other person's perspective, and even if he disagreed, he would maintain respect for the intellectual autonomy of the other person. He would recognize that each person has his own journey and experiences that have shaped his beliefs, and that imposing one view is not the path to wisdom or harmony. By applying these Stoic principles, we can avoid the trap of idiocy, the idolatry of our own views, and cultivate an attitude of humility, reason, and respect in our interactions with the world and others. It's not about not having strong opinions, but rather how we present them and how we respond when they are challenged or rejected. Similarly, our particular worldview is a belief structure made up of interconnected ideas and convictions. Everyone in the world from childhood onwards seeks to feel safe, competent, and good. This is why we construct these views. We believe that they will help us achieve these fundamental goals. If our belief structure provides us with this sense of security and well-being, we embrace it and accept it as valid. We learn new things, are exposed to different perspectives, and adjust our views. The same happens with our beliefs. If we question or tear down too many pillars at once without a process of careful replacement or reevaluation, our worldview can collapse, generating disorientation and distress. The Stoics offer us principles for building and maintaining a resilient belief structure that is less prone to idiocy. The Stoics teach us to accept the transitory nature of all things, including our own beliefs. The idea of amor fati, love of fate, encourages us to accept reality as it is, which includes the possibility that our current beliefs may not be entirely accurate. Memento mori, remember that you will die, reminds us of the finiteness of life and the importance of living according to reason without excessive attachment to opinions that may be flawed. Imagine that you grew up with the belief that, to be successful, you need to have a stable job at a large corporation. A Stoic, observing the ever-changing world, would be open to the possibility that this belief might need to be reevaluated. He would not cling to it blindly, even if the job market changed. If new opportunities presented themselves, or his passion led him in a different direction, he would be willing to remove and replace that block, adapting his vision of success without his belief structure crumbling, because he accepts change as a part of life. The foolish thing would be to cling to that old vision and disdain any other path to success, even if reality shows otherwise. Logos, universal reason, is central to Stoicism. Stoics encourage us to base our beliefs not on emotions or prejudices, but on evidence and logical reasoning. You read a news story and immediately form a strong opinion about it. An idiot would accept this opinion as absolute truth and defend it vehemently, without question. A Stoic, on the other hand, would apply logos. He would ask, what is the evidence for this belief? Are there other sources that contradict or complement this information? Is my judgment based on facts or on my emotions? He would be willing to remove a block of belief if it is not supported by reason and replace it with a more solid block based on verifiable facts. Epictetus taught that we are not disturbed by things themselves but by our interpretation of them. Prohairesis is our ability to choose and judge how we react to impressions. Someone expresses an opinion that contradicts one of your most deeply held beliefs. The first impression might be one of anger, frustration, or a desire to attack. A jerk would give in to this impression and start a heated argument, trying to knock down the other person's tower. A Stoic, however, would use his prohairesis. He would pause and say to himself, this is just an impression. I don't have to react immediately. I can choose how I interpret and respond to it. Rather than seeing the difference of opinion as a threat to his own tower, he would see it as an opportunity to examine the solidity of his own blocks or to understand a different perspective. The Stoics constantly remind us of the dichotomy of control. We can only control our actions and judgments, not the actions or thoughts of others. You have a very clear vision of how a project should be executed, and you share that vision with your team. A jerk would insist that his way is the only right way, and would become frustrated if the team didn't fully embrace it. A Stoic would understand that the team's decisions and opinions are not under his direct control. He would present his vision in a persuasive, controllable way, but would accept that the final decision or how others receive it is not something he can determine. Our personal visions are like towers we build, complex, interconnected, and sometimes fragile. As we go through life, we naturally remove certain blocks, certain beliefs that we discover are no longer true. When this happens in a one-off fashion, the process is relatively painless. However, if too many of these pieces are removed at once, as in a life or spiritual crisis, the structure crumbles, causing intense emotional and mental distress. The great mistake of the idiot is not understanding or refusing to recognize that people are not empty vessels to be filled, nor inert stones to be manipulated. Demanding that someone suddenly accept your personal vision is like asking that person to remove many blocks from their own belief structure at once, forcing a collapse. When we act like this, we are not treating the other person as a human being who is actively constructing their own belief system. We are acting as if we are holding a jar of knowledge ready to pour it into other people's minds, or as if people are merely stones that we can mold to our will. Stones do not have visions or structures of knowledge, but human beings do. Treating someone like a stone is a grave injustice and ultimately an act of profound folly. We don't usually want to act like idiots. Our intentions are usually noble. We believe that our opinions make us and the world safer, kinder, and more effective. We want the world to be a better place, but even with the best intentions, we can fall into idiocy if we're not aware of our potential for it. Stoic philosophy offers us a clear path to avoid this trap, promoting wiser and more compassionate interaction. Imagine you are discussing a controversial topic with a coworker. Instead of interrupting or dismissing their perspective, a Stoic would practice active listening. They would recognize that their opinion, while different from yours, is the result of their own experiences and reasoning, even if you disagree with them. They would not try to break their tower of beliefs, but rather to understand how it was constructed. Treating your coworker as an empty vessel would be assuming that they do not have their own view. Treating them as a rock would be trying to force them to accept yours. The Stoic understands that the other person's opinion is not under their control, and that respect is essential to any productive dialogue. Neither yours nor anyone else's is 100% accurate. Accepting that holding some incorrect beliefs is part of human nature is an essential act of humility. No one is omniscient. You have always believed that a certain method of study is the most effective. When faced with new research that points to a different approach, a Stoic would not feel embarrassed or defensive. Instead, he would apply reason to evaluate the new information. He would recognize that his tower might have one or more faulty blocks and would be willing to replace them with more robust evidence-based blocks. The foolish thing would be to stubbornly cling to an old belief out of pride or fear of being wrong. No one intentionally builds a flawed belief structure. Remember that everyone, including those with whom you vehemently disagree, seeks to feel safe, good, and effective. Their beliefs are a path to achieving these goals for them. When hearing someone express an opinion that you consider completely wrong and even harmful, rather than immediately dismissing them as malicious, a Stoic would try to practice cognitive empathy. They would ask themselves, why might this person believe this? What experiences or information led them to form this belief? How does this belief help them feel safe or effective in their own life? This approach does not mean agreeing, but rather understanding the root of the belief, which is often tied to the universal quest for safety and well-being. This diffuses anger and opens the door to more constructive dialogue. Trying to impose your personal vision is, no matter how noble your intentions, an act of violence against the autonomy of another person's belief structure. It is an attempt to demolish the other person's tower, which is unacceptable. You have a brilliant solution to a family problem, but your family members insist on a different approach. A Stoic would present his arguments clearly and calmly. However, if the family decides to go another way, he would accept that decision. He would understand that trying to force his view would be a violation of their agency and would only lead to conflict and resentment. Rather than insisting and causing a relationship breakdown, he would focus on his own virtuous actions and attitudes within the situation, even if the outcome is not ideal for him. Stoic practical wisdom, phronesis, would teach that the goal is harmony and well-being of the group. not the imposition of one's own will. Instead of imposing, seek to deeply understand the views of others. Work together to create a world where everyone feels safe, good, and effective. In doing so, you will be building a community framework, a strong and meaningful public vision. In a community project, different groups come up with ideas about how best to organize an event. Rather than each fighting for their tower to prevail, a Stoic would actively seek out common ground and shared virtues, such as the pursuit of community safety and effectiveness. He or she would facilitate conversation, encouraging each person to express their reasons and listen to those of others. The goal is not for your idea to win, but for you to work together to build a framework that benefits everyone, a public vision that incorporates the best of all perspectives, resulting in a more successful event and a more united community. It is crucial to note that sometimes personal opinions lead people to violent, evil, and reprehensible actions. Such actions, such as murder or genocide, represent the ultimate form of idiocy, because they are extreme attempts to impose personal opinions. Such acts demand justice and accountability. However, it is possible to act justly without responding to stupidity with more stupidity. Even when people do horrible things, they often believe that their actions are somehow safe, good, or effective for themselves or a group they support. We can seek justice and even punishment, but always keep in mind the possibility of creating a space where people can re-examine their belief structures. This is an act of love in the Stoic sense, of rational benevolence in pursuit of the common good. History is full of examples of idiocy, and fortunately, also of people who have abandoned this attitude and embraced an orientation of love and reason. If we realize that we have acted like idiots, we can always change. We can stop being idiots and start being truly human, discussing our beliefs peacefully and building a public belief structure that makes the world safe, good, and effective for everyone. If you feel like people are treating you like an idiot or stupid, remember what the Stoics teach us about the dichotomy of control. Other people's opinions are not yours to control. The first thing is to not pay too much attention to what these people say. Take a little distance, physically or emotionally, from people who disrespect you. Stoic tranquility, ataraxia, does not mean the absence of emotion, but the freedom from being disturbed by things that are not under our control. Why is what these people think so important to you? The answer to that lies in your own mind, not theirs. Epictetus said, "Do not seek to have events happen as you wish, but wish that they happen as they do, and you will do well." This applies to interactions. Focus on how you behave and cultivating your own virtues, wisdom, justice, courage, temperance. If you act with intelligence and integrity, outside opinion is irrelevant to your intrinsic worth. Take inventory of the things you excel at, your skills, and your accomplishments. Remind yourself of them when you feel insecure. Tell yourself, at every opportunity, that you are competent and valuable. What others think is their problem, not yours. If your work or social environment is consistently toxic and no one recognizes your worth, a Stoic would consider seeking an environment where you can flourish, because rational action also includes removing yourself from harmful situations. Seek out people who value and appreciate you. Surround yourself with friends you trust and who can remind you of your good qualities. If a stranger gives you a compliment, accept it with gratitude and take it to heart. Stupidity is a behavior. Don't let yourself be defined by the distorted perceptions of others. By applying Stoic wisdom, you can free yourself from the need for external approval and build an internal resilience that empowers you to act wisely, regardless of how others choose to behave. On our journey, it's common to feel insecure or shaken by the opinions of others. Stoic texts illustrate this perfectly. A sincere compliment from a stranger can have transformative power, while criticism from someone close to us can undermine our self-esteem. Stoic philosophy offers a practical guide for navigating these experiences, helping us avoid falling into the trap of idiocy, whether our own or that of others. Criticism from her husband about her appearance reinforced this insecurity. However, an unexpected compliment from a stranger changed her perception for days. She began to see herself as Very pretty again. This demonstrates how our internal perception is more powerful than external circumstances or the opinions of others. For the Stoics, the world does not disturb us in and of itself, but rather in the way we interpret events. This is the essence of the dichotomy of control. We do not control what others say or do, but we do control our reaction and our judgments about it. The husband criticized the author's hair and weight. To a Stoic, this criticism would be an external impression, something beyond her control. Instead of holding on to this impression and letting it dictate her worth, the author could have reminded herself, his opinion is his own. My beauty and worth are determined by my own actions and character, not by how he sees me or what he expects of me. The stranger's compliment, on the other hand, was another external impression. The author, in a Stoic way, chose to accept the positive impression and incorporate it into her self-image, strengthening her virtue of self-respect rather than holding on to the negative one. We don't just need to learn from billionaires and athletes. We can learn a lot from observing the behavior we don't want to replicate, the behavior of jerks. If someone backstabs us, betrays us, bullies us, or disappoints us, our response is crucial. Being a Stoic doesn't mean being passive, but rather controlling our response and learning from the experience. When someone disappoints us, our first reaction might be bitterness and the belief that all people are bad. A Stoic, however, would exercise his prohairesis, the capacity for rational choice. He would acknowledge anger or sadness as initial impressions, but he would not let himself be consumed by them. Instead, he would observe the jerks, behavior with a searching eye. What did this person do? Why did he act like that? What are the consequences of this kind of action? Does this align with the person I want to be? Rather than taking personal offense and retaliating with more jerkiness, he would use the situation as an exercise in strengthening his own character and reaffirming the kind of person he does not want to be. He would learn, for example, that backstabbing is unacceptable behavior and therefore something he himself should avoid. Shakespeare said that nothing is either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. This resonates deeply with Stoicism. We are not born idiots, we become one. The good news is that we have the freedom to choose not to be. No one is born with the intention to deceive or harm. Often, idiocy is born out of fear, insecurity, or a misguided quest for safety and effectiveness. If you find yourself in an environment where unethical behavior is rewarded, such as being promoted after stealing someone else's rights, a Stoic would not see this as justification for becoming like them. He would practice self-control and fairness. He would ask himself, what is the right action here? Should I act with integrity, even if it doesn't get me an immediate promotion, or should I compromise my principles? The Stoic choice would be to always do what is right, regardless of external results or the actions of the idiots around you. This choice is an act of inner freedom and the true proof that you are not a rock being manipulated by circumstances, but rather a rational being who shapes your own character. To avoid being an idiot and to deal with it when others behave. Like 1, cultivate your inner strength. Understand that the way you feel about yourself comes from within. When you believe in your own worth, it will be reflected externally. Practice focusing on what you do well. Take inventory of your strengths and accomplishments. Tell yourself that you are smart and a winner. If someone treats you badly, remember this is about them, not me. Their anger or frustration is their problem, not yours. You don't control what they think, but you do control how you react. Dealing with idiocy, your own or others, is a skill that improves with practice. The more you apply the Stoic principles of discernment, reason, and self-control, the more resilient you will become. Surround yourself with people who appreciate and support you. If an environment, like a job, is consistently detrimental, consider finding a place where your worth is recognized and where you can flourish. This is not cowardice, but prudence and Stoic self-care. Our journey doesn't end here. Watch our other videos to enrich your soul. If you liked the Virtual Books Editora channel, don't forget to subscribe. We ask you to spread the word and share. We offer, free of charge, the classics of universal literature for you to read and listen to on the Books Editora virtual channel.